Zeker. The Purim, what's Purim? What's Purim? The Gemara asks about Chanukah, my Chanukah. What's Chanukah? So what Pasha is the reason doesn't ask about Purim, because you have a whole Megillah Esther. If you have, you know about what Purim is about. There's a Megillah Esther, there's a Masechta Megillah. So the Gemara doesn't ask my Purim. But there's so much about Purim, and there's so many details in Purim, that we can ask, what is it special about Purim, or extra special that we could focus on? And especially that Purim should be a message for the whole year. The end of Hilchas Purim, or Hilchas Megillah, it says, Toiv Leiv Mishta Tomen. It's this also the end of the first part of Shulchan Aruch, of Eir Chaim. The end of the Shulchan Aruch Eir Chaim is Toiv Leiv Mishta Tomen. So even though Purim is Yemei Mishta V'Simcha, and on Purim is actually a mitzvah to drink and to be merry, and maybe even get drunk. You have to ask your Rav Shaila exactly how to celebrate Purim. We're not going to get into that really. But Toiv Leiv Mishta Tomid, that all year, always, a person should have Toiv Leiv Mishta Tomid. There's always should be Tomid. Constantly there's the idea of Toiv Leiv Mishta. So what is it important that is so important and central to Purim? And actually, we find one point in Purim that is not emphasized enough, although in the Sfarim of Gedolei Yisrael and also in most of the Drush Chassidus of Chabad, it is emphasized, and that is the Gemara in Masechta Shabbos. In the Gemara in Masechta Shabbos, it talks about Matan Torah, and over there in the Sugi of Matan Torah, the Gemara says that what was started by Matan Torah was confirmed on Purim. And the pasuk in the Megillah Esther, Kimu v'kiblu ha-Yehudim, that the Yidden were Makayim, they confirmed and they accepted what happened by Matan Torah. This was reconfirmed by and the story of Purim. So since this was reconfirmed in the story of Purim, so in other words, what was started by Matan Torah. What was started by Matan Torah was completed and confirmed on Purim. So then the Gemara, so again, what did the Gemara Shabbos say? The Gemara Shabbos says, "V'yisyatzu b'tachti sa'or." The Gemara Shabbos says that v'yisyatzu b'tachti sa'or, when Hashem gave the Torah, so Hashem lifted the mountain above them, and He told them, "Are you accept the mitzvah Torah mitzvahs or not?" So the Gemara says, if Hashem lifted the mountain above them and told them that this is it, you have to accept the Torah, so then this is a contract that was made under duress. And there's a halacha, and it's an Evi, it's a universal law, that someone who's forced to make a deal, to make a contract, it is not binding. So the Gemara says, Mikan Veido Rabba Leiraisa, that from this, the Yidden have a claim, the Jewish people have a claim that this deal is not binding. The contract that Hashem made with the Yidden when He gave them the Torah is not binding because it was made under duress. It was coercion. They were forced to accept the Torah. So if they were forced to accept the Torah, the Kabbalah Torah should not be binding. When did this change? So the Gemara says, it's about 1,000 years later. The story of Achashverosh was about 1,000 years after Matan Torah. Because after Matan Torah, they were 40 years in the desert. Then they went to Eretz Yisrael. They were in Eretz Yisrael about 950 years. And then they were exiled in Bavel and Paras. So you're talking about over 1,000 years later. So what was started by Matan Torah, this was a bit shaky. It was a bit shaky. Because the Yidden have a claim that maybe this was under coercion, they were forced to do this. When was it confirmed? This was by Mei Achashverosh. Where do you see in the story of Achashverosh that they accepted it? So Rashi says, Me'ahavas hanes, that the Yidden accepted the Torah Me'ahavas hanes. If you look at the story of the Megillah, you don't see really, where they signed the contract willingly. But look, the Gemara says they accepted it willingly. There was no more coercion. So apparently Rashi learns pshat that because they were so happy about the nest, they loved Hashem for the nest. They almost were killed. It was the Gezeirah of Haman, and miraculously they came out of this safe and sound. So therefore, they were happy. And they were happy to be a Yid. And there was even the Goyim wanted to be a Yid. So it was great times for the Jewish people. And they had such happiness and such love of their Yiddishkeit and the love for Hashem. So then they confirmed Kimu v'Kibla Yehudim. So Rashi says it's Mi'avas hanes. So it comes out that when was this confirmation that the Gemara is talking about? Accepting Yiddishkeit willingly, accepting Torah of their own free will without coercion. This happened after the story of Purim, towards the end of the story of Purim, after the decree was cancelled. We find in Torah Oyer, the Alter Rebbe, he brings this Gemara, and he also attaches it to another pasuk that with the similar theme. It says, "V'kibel haYehudim asher echelu la'asais." That by Matan Torah they accepted what they took upon themselves in the beginning. Hechelu v'kibel haYehudim asher echelu la'asais. So the Alter Rebbe in Pshat, in the words of the Megillah, takes the pasuk a little earlier in that same Perek Tes in Megillah Esther, and he says that he connects it with the beginning. The beginning was by Matan Torah. And the climax and confirmation was by the story of Purim. So over here he asks a question. That means by Matan Torah, with all the fireworks, and the mountain is on fire, and Koilos Brakim, this is only the beginning. And when the Tachlis, this is the story of Purim, when the Yidden were where? In Persia. And they had a Goyish king, and one of the reasons we don't say Hallel is because Hakati Avdi Nachashverosh Hanan. So that's that's what really became Yidden without questions, without a claim of Meidah Rabba Leiraisa. So the Alter Rebbe, and this continues in the Zushe Chassidus of the later Rebbes, and also the last mimer that the Rebbe gave out before he got the stroke in Tafshin Nun Beis, was a mimer also V'atat et Sava. He also goes into this point, which is all based on a mimer of the Alter Rebbe. And the Alter Rebbe says, when was V'hader v'kibluha b'mei Achashverosh? When did the Yidden accept it again, willingly? It was when they were still under the decree of Haman. And the Alter Rebbe goes into the history of what happened. So Haman convinced Achashverosh to make a decree that the Jews are all going to be killed, or whoever wants to kill Jews, Jewish blood is free for all. So there's a decree from the king, who's ruling the Persian Empire, who's ruling most of the world, that wherever you see a Jew, you'll have to kill him when Yud Gimel Adar. And even after they hung Haman, and Esther revealed herself as a Jewish queen, And Mordechai is already a man of influence. The decree of Haman was not rescinded because these Persian kings have this mishagas that whatever a Persian king does can't change his mind. So they made another decree that the Jews have the right to defend themselves, the Jews have the right to fight their enemies. So there was this crazy day everyone was waiting for, where there was two contradicting laws and decrees in the books of the Persian kingdom. That whoever wants to kill a Jew is allowed to kill a Jew, and any Jew who wants to kill an enemy is allowed to kill their enemy. Very wise kingdom, and still very wise place, Persia. So the bottom line is, think about yourself. Put yourself in the position of the Yidden who are living in the Persian Empire. And they're living all over the Persian Empire, not just in Persia necessarily, all over. There was a Yidden in Eretz Yisrael already by then. So they had a choice. Their choice was, are you Yehudim? That's what the Alter Rebbe says. The decree of Haman was against Yehudim. Yehudim is a religion. And if someone would go to the authorities and register himself as a goy, meaning he would become an idol worshiper, he would believe in the gods of the Persians, he would abandon the Jewish faith and he would become a Persian, a Parsi, and not a Yehudi, then he would be out of the danger of this decree that was only on the Yidden. And we see it also in the way Haman was convincing Achashverosh. What was he saying? The same Shenis B'Kolam. The Jews are different. They have a different religion. And the Midrashim tell us, you know, if the king will touch the wine, they won't drink it. They have a different religion. So if they have a different religion, it's the religion. So therefore, according to this, it comes out, the decree of Haman was not like Hitler. Hitler wanted to kill the Jews even if a Jew shmad, he wanted to kill him. But over here it was against the Yehudim as a Jewish religion. So therefore, the decree was a decree where a Jew would have an out if he denies his Yiddishkeit. So if a Yid would deny his Yiddishkeit, he wouldn't be in danger. So now, every Yid had a long time to think, because the Gzeira was Hippel, Pur, Agaro, was Adar, and Nisan. Nisan, really, the Gzeira came out. So they had a year time, or close to a year, depending how, if there was a leap year, it wasn't a leap year, there's a whole debate about this. But certainly you had almost a year or a year time to decide. And this pressure. And are you endangering yourself? Are you endangering your children? There's old people who can't defend themselves. There's sick people. There's so many different types of Yidden. And the Alter Rebbe says that there wasn't one Yid who would even consider, would have machshavas chutz chas v'shalom, to abandon their faith. So the way the Alter Rebbe looks at it, that how did they accept to be Yidden, and how did they accept Torah again, and this time willingly, without coercion, without the force and the pressure of a mountain above them, that this was in the story of Purim, during when the Gzeira of Haman, when the decree of Haman was actually in effect. So here they had a choice, and they chose to be in. They had a choice which would endanger their life. And they made the choice to be a Yid and endanger my life, rather than to become a Goy and be secure with physical security. So that's how Hadar v'kiblu v'mechashresh. So therefore now we have two hashkafas, or two pshatim in how, and more importantly, when they reaccepted and reconfirmed the Yiddishkeit. So the Gemara doesn't say when, it just says Hadar v'kiblu v'mechashresh, that the Yidden reconfirmed their Yiddishkeit and reaccepted the Torah, and this time willingly, without coercion, Without force, this was b'mechashverish. So the Alter Rebbe's pshat that it really was during the Gzeira of Haman, when they made the choice to remain Jewish, even though their life was in danger. And Rashi says mi'alas hanes, that it was after they the miracle of Purim, when they were no longer under pressure. So apparently Rashi learns pshat that what was the passion about their celebration? They were celebrating Kivu v'Kibla Yehudim. So the danger is off. Why do they have to be so proud of being a Yid? There's some people after the Holocaust, they're still scared to walk in the streets and say they're Jewish. And here the Yidden were expressing the Yiddishkeit after the story of Haman with such passion, with such excitement, and they were so proud to be as good as Zayin Yid. So that's when Hadavik was. That's Rashi's pshat. And we're going to soon explain later that really these two pshatim, and the Rebbe in the Maimah of Atat Tzava, that Maimah that he gave out before the stroke, he does focus on really these are two types of eras, and really two types of celebrating Yiddishkeit. Is it in the time of a Gzeira, you're being strong in your Yiddishkeit, or is in the good times, is it in the worst of times that a Yid shows his attachment to Torah and to Yiddishkeit? Or is it in the best of times that a Yid shows his attachment to Yiddishkeit? But before that, with the Alter Rebbe's pshat, we can explain a Sfas Emes. There's a Sfas Emes. The Sfas Emes was the second Ger Rebbe. He lived over 100 years ago, 150 years ago. So he wrote Chassidish Sfarim called the Sfas Emes. He brings a lot Chabad, he brings Tanya in his Sefer Sfas Emes ala Torah. But also he was a big Gaon in Igla. And the Sfas Emes, he wrote Chidushim on Gemara, on Moyed, on Kotshim. He was a big genius in Gemara itself. And this is in the Sfas Emes on the Gemara, on this sugi of Matan Torah, we're speaking about that this whole discussion is in the Gemara Masechta Shabbos, where the Gemara speaks a few blot Gemara on Matan Torah, what happened, the background of when Hashem gave the Torah. Hashem gave the Torah on Shabbos. It's in Masechta Shabbos. And over there, the Gemara speaks about how they were forced, the Yidden were forced to accept the Torah. And how they vikiblu b'mechashverish. So that when you the Rishonim and the Achrayim, much ink has flowed to understand this whole Gemara. And there are many kashas which the Rishonim and the Achrayim ask. I want to speak about two of them. First of all, the Parashas Drachim and many of the other Svarah. Parashas Drachim is the Mishnah of Melech wrote a sefer of Drush, and he has a whole chapter on this Gemara. And one of the questions he raises is, so what does that mean? If the Jewish people have a claim that their contract with Hashem is just by force, is by coercion, so that means they're not really bound by it. So if they're not really bound by it, so then why were they punished? They had Matan Torah, then they went to Eretz Yisrael. And the Nevi'im were telling them, you're terrible. You're doing Avodah Zarah. You're doing this. You're not cheating. You're cheating on your neighbor. You're cheating on your people. You're doing terrible things. And then there was the Golas, and there was Gezeres, and there were hungers. Why? Because the Yidden weren't listening to Hashem. And they were being oppressed by their neighbors. The time of the Shafin is one word and another word, another word. Why? Because they're not doing Torah mitzvahs. Why were they punished? If the Yidden were coerced into accepting the Torah, and they have a time of Moidar Rabba Raisa, they have a time of this contract that they made with Hashem by Matan Torah. It was by force, the mountain was on top of them. So until 1,000 years later, by the story of Purim, that's when they signed the contract the second time, but this time it was willingly. So why were they punished? There's a question. There's different truths over there. I'm not going to go into all the truths. Then Taisus, over here, I'm Masechta Shabbos, Taisus asks the kasha. Taisus says the kasha, Pshat. This Matan Torah was on the 6th of Sivan. That's when we celebrate Shavuos. We celebrate Shavuos on the 6th day of Sivan. The Torah tells us exactly what happened when they moved. They're a few weeks out of Mitzrayim, and they came to Har Sinai. It was Rosh Chodesh Sivan. And the Torah tells us every day, from the 1st of Sivan, the 2nd of Sivan, the 3rd of Sivan, what was going on in the Jewish camp. And what was going on in Machne Yisrael. And Hashem sent a message to tell the Moshe should tell the Yidden this. And then Moshe responded what the Yidden said. And one of the things that was said then was, Hashem said that I want you to be Melechas Kohanim V'Gei Kodesh. And I'm going to give the Yidden the Torah, and they're going to have the mitzvahs, and 630 mitzvahs. What was the Yidden response? No, what did the Yidden respond? Nasav and Ishma. So they did Nasav and Ishma. So if I say I'm ready to sell my house, you're going to put a gun to my head that I should sell the house? I'm selling the house. You want to buy, we made a deal, you're ready to pay so much money for the house, I don't know what flappish the prices are. I'm ready to sell the house. Don't put a gun to my head. I'm ready to sign willingly. I'm saying Nasav and Ishma. I don't even want to hear anything. Nasav and Ishma. Before, I don't have to hear the details. You, I love you, I'm going to sell the house. So if the Yin said Nasav and Ishma, Taisus Kasha. All the Rishonim ask this Kasha. There's a variety of trutzim to this Kasha. What does Taisus answer? The Sfas Emes speaks about Taisus' answer. What does Taisus answer? Taisus answers that they agreed the 2nd or 3rd day of Sivan, Yidden said Nasav and Ishma. But the real fireworks started on the morning of the 6th of Sivan. The mountain is on fire. There's thunder and there's lightning. There's the blast of the shofar. The mountain is shaking. And the Yidden are petrified. They're petrified. And they're coming to the mountain and they're scared. It was a frightening experience. They're scared. They feel the closest to Hashem, but Parcha Nishmasan. In the end, when they heard the Shekhinah start talking to them, when they heard the Nechev V'Alikecha, Parcha Nishmasan, the Neshama left them. So therefore, the question of here, Taisus says, were they ready to accept the Torah? They said Nasav and Ishma when it was sunny outside. It was a clear sky. There was no snow in the street. They left that. They just left Mitzrayim. They're eating mun. It's good times. You want to be my people? The Bayra Eilam, he's great. It's great. He's going to give us Miyat Le'am Le'ah Psuchak Teisha V'Chava Nasav and Ishma. We're ready to deal with Hashem. Contract with Hashem. Nasav and Ishma. But when they see that Yiddishkeit can be frightening, that a Yiddishkeit could be so intense that Parcha Nishmasan, who said they were ready to accept that? So in order for Yidden to accept it on that day, in the midst of that awesome scene of Matan Torah, Hashem lifted the mountain and says, you have no choice. You can't run away. Parcha Nishmasan, even if your neshama is going to leave you, you have to be a Yid. That's Taisus teretz. So Nasav and Ishma was then, but on the day of Matan Torah, when there was what could be seen as a frightening experience, then they had to have the coercion. So the Sfas Emes takes this apart. He analyzes it. So he says, so the Sfas Emes says, if you look at what Taisus is saying, that means there are two levels to this contract that Hashem made with the Yidden. He says, there's the Yiddishkeit that doesn't demand sacrifice of Mesiras Nefesh. There's the Yiddishkeit that's not frightening. That Yiddishkeit, they said Nasav and Ishma. That Yiddishkeit they agreed to. But the Yiddishkeit, which can be frightening, that to the degree that it may become so intense that their neshama would leave them, it's that part of Yiddishkeit they weren't ready. The Sfas Emes puts this in halachic terminology. in halacha, your life comes before any mitzvah. Shabbos, you mechal Shabbos to save a life. You eat on Yom Kippur to save a life. But there are certain halachas which you have to be ready to give up your life. Avodah Zarah, Gilui Arayis, Shvichas Damim. There's certain halachas for Avodah Zarah, you have to be ready to give up your life. That means if a guy is going to come put a knife to, put a gun to your head and say Avodah Zarah, or Shvichas Damim, or Gilui Arayis, you have to be ready to get killed. So the Sasem says, that level of commitment, there was no Nasav and Ishma willingly. That level of commitment, that Parcha Nishmas, that you have to give up your life for principles of Torah, that they had a mountain hovering over their head. So therefore, he says, the Maidol Rabba L'Iraisa, any claim that the Gemara says the Yidden could have for, on the contract that they had with Hashem, so to say, any claim that it was under duress, on the coercion, that could be only for these three mitzvahs when you heard about Yavra. But the rest of Torah mitzvahs, they did accept willingly. But you're saying they didn't accept willingly to be ready to give up their life for Yiddishkeit. Okay. So therefore, with this, the Sfas Emes, with the pshat of the Sfas Emes, we can answer, even though he doesn't address it directly, we can answer the question that the Parashas Drachim and other had, about the 1,000 years between Matan Torah and Yemei HaPurim. Why were they punished for their averas? They weren't punished for averas that they because they didn't have Mesiras Nefesh. Many of them were Rishoyim. They waved their Avodah Zarah. Whatever averas they did, these were the averas that they did willingly, and not under duress, and not under coercion, and nevertheless, these averas, this Yidden accepted willingly. To only claim that a Yid could have that Mikan Maidor Rabba L'Iraisa is the demands of Torah, that sometimes you have to be ready to give up your life for these three principles of Torah. That the Taka were coerced to do. And she continues. Over here they accepted it willingly. Now, the Sfas Emes doesn't show where do you see that during the time of Purim that they accepted willingly B'rotzen to have Mesiras Nefesh. Where do you see it? So the Sfas Emes, he says, well, because of the nest that happened to them, they were so happy that they were willingly accepted to go on Mesiras Nefesh for Hashem. It doesn't say in the Gemara where this is. The Sfas Emes says, well, listen, the Sfas Emes' argument is based, he says, because the Gemara says one of the reasons that there was a decree that on the Yid in the days of Haman, one of the reasons was because Ishtachvu L'Tzelem Imei Nebuchadnezzar, because they bowed to the idol of Nebuchadnezzar. A few dozen years before that, when Nebuchadnezzar brought the Yidden out of Eretz Yisrael, he brought them to Babel. So at that time, he gave them, he forced the Yidden to worship an idol, his own idol. And they bowed to the idol of Nebuchadnezzar. And from then on, there was already a decree, over the head of the Yidden. Listen, they all worshiped the idol of Nebuchadnezzar. And this came to its completion of the decree in the days of Purim. So therefore, according to this, the reason why the Yid, the Gzeira of Haman, was because they bowed to Avodah Zarah. But now, after the Purim was ended, so they made a tikkun. The tikkun was that now they're happy to be a Yid and they would go on Mesiras Nefesh for Hashem. But the Sfas Emes doesn't show exactly where you see that. But if you put the Alter Rebbe's pshat into the Sfas Emes' word, and Alter Rebbe says that when did they reconfirm their commitment to Hashem? They reconfirmed their commitment during the year that the Gzeira of Haman was still pending. And they had a choice if they should re-register themselves as a goy, and they wouldn't have the danger of being killed in the decree of Haman. And every Jew stood faithful with Hashem. He stood faithful with Torah. And they chose to go on Mesiras Nefesh. It was a choice of Mesiras Nefesh. So then, then the whole pshat of the Sfasem is much more stronger if you can put in the word of the Alter Rebbe that the Yidden actually had Mesiras Nefesh b'poel mamish, not by choice, not to chas v'shalom withdraw themselves from Yiddishkeit. So, how do we apply this in our own life? How do we apply this whole person's going to be put in? And we're going to hear the Megillah at night, we're going to hear them in the day, and everyone is mahada today in being Mekayim in the mitzvah of Adlai Yada, and that today Rabbonim the Shilas is how Mekayim Adlai Yada, and everyone, the whiskey stores are already lines, and Matzah Shabbos I was driving by, the whiskey stores are already open, is this wine and that wine, and this whiskey and that whiskey, so everyone's busy about the Mekayim the mitzvah of Adlai Yada. And Taka Adlai Yada, Taka is so important. Adlai Yada, so Yeshiva, Vishir, Bachram asked me, so how are the kind of Adlai Yada? The Rebbe said that Bachram shouldn't drink more than 4 little cups. So how am I kind of mitzvah of Adlai Yada? So really, Adlai Yada is an attitude. It's not about the mashke. Adlai Yada is an attitude. It's not about how much mashke. Someone could drink a lot of mashke, he's just going to get drunk and, how do you say, bashed. And someone could drink very little. Shulchan Aruch says you should drink something, so you have to drink. But Adlai Yada is really an attitude. It's an attitude that should be with us all the time. And it brings us back to the discussion of really Mesiras Nefesh. What was the greatness of the Dor of Achashverosh? The greatness of Purim is it's Matan Torah all over again, and then some. The greatness and the importance of Purim, we have to see Purim that this is when the Yidden made a commitment to Hashem with Mesiras Nefesh. That is what Purim is about. And that is expressed in the Adlai Yada. Because what is Mesiras Nefesh? If someone makes calculations, about his Yiddishkeit, does it pay for me, it doesn't pay for me, I'm going to trade this, so this mitzvah yes, the other mitzvah no, with if it has to do with sneers, no, but Shabbos yes, Torah yes, this no. If once we make all of these calculations, so it's not a wholesome commitment. It's calculations. And sometimes the calculations could be even halacha. Halacha could justify making calculations. And Adlai Yada means, Adlai Yada, Yid on Purim has to say, there's no, there's Haman and Mordechai, I'm committed to Hashem beyond das. That's what Chassidus explains it. That's Mesiras Nefesh. Mesiras Nefesh, someone make a calculation. Am I obligated to Mesiras Nefesh? How much sacrifice should I have? Shabbos, if it's Shabbos, should I, to what degree do I have to have a job? It's going to be in conflict with Shabbos, but Friday, late Friday, but I'll always be home before Tzeisak Chavim, but I may not be home after the Shkia. If you start making calculations, then your commitment to Yiddishkeit is not complete. And Purim is about making complete a commitment to Yiddishkeit that's Mesiras Nefesh. And it can be in 2 ways. Some people, when they're in trouble, that's when they become frum. Some people, when they're in trouble, they daven. Someone is sick, they're in danger, losing the job, they're in trouble. They're in Yiddishkeit when they're in trouble. And the truth is, there is something to that. The Chazal tell us that why are the Jewish people compared to an olive? Because an olive doesn't give its oils until it's crushed. And when it's crushed, the oil comes out. And under pressure, under pressure in the Gzeir of Haman, and that shows, well, that's the way Chassidus explains. Do you know what brought out the greatness of the Jewish people in the time of Haman? It was precisely the Gzeir of Haman, and they were in danger, and they were pressured, and this pressure brings out the best in some people and some of the time. And at that time, the pressure of the Gzeir of Haman, the Yidden said, no, I'm a Yid, I'm proud, and that's the way it's going to be. And I'm ready to give everything up front. But then, there's also in the best of times. In the best of times, we have to ask ourselves, am I davening with such kavanah because I'm happy about Yiddishkeit? In the best of times, we have to ask ourselves, everything is good. Do I need Mashiach? I have parnasa, I have a family, I have a home, everybody loves me, I feel accomplished in my life, all my dreams came true, I'm missing nothing in my life. Do I want Mashiach? Do I want such an intense, do I need Hashem? Do I need Hashem? Am I davening with kavanah? You know, they say the joke, so how does the joke go? There's a person, a poor person, and regular balabas, and something happened in the town, and he was the only one who came out ahead. What happened in the town? The bank in the town went bankrupt. And everybody who had money in the bank lost all their money. Except for one guy. This guy. This guy took out his money a week before the bank went bankrupt. And everybody knew about it. So he says, how did you know? How did you know that you have to take out your money a week before the local bank goes bankrupt? He says, you know why? Because in the row in front of me is the Gvir who owns the bank. And that Shabbos, I saw him davening. He was davening with such kavanah like never before. And when we were davening for Mashiach, he was, Mashiach has to come. So I saw when he's davening for Mashiach, I knew the bank is in trouble. So that's why I took all my money out. So that's some people, they need trouble to bring them closer to Hashem. And some people, it's a pressure. And the Rebbe makes an interesting observation in that Maimer. The Rebbe says in that Maimer, he says that there were Chassidim, Lubavitcher Chassidim, who when they were in Russia, and Lubavitcher Chassidim, the worst of times under communist persecution, there were Chassidim who they had beards, and they brought up their teenage children, bacharim, with beards, and they didn't let the boys or girls go to school on Shabbos, and if they were forced they wouldn't write, and they would have a cast on their right hand, and they would have this excuse and that, and it was mamash mesiras nefesh. They could lose their children, the government could take away the children, so it was mamash mesiras nefesh. And they had mesiras nefesh for Shabbos in the worst of times. So these same Chassidim, who had mesiras nefesh when they were in Soviet Russia, when they came out of Russia to America or to Israel, the Rebbe said, that passion, that commitment, that fire that they had when they were under communism, it faded when they were in the land of the plenty, when they had freedom. And the Rebbe so to say says, look, and I mentioned this actually last night. I had a shir Brighton Beach from Abalabatim. There was a refusnik there. He was a refusnik in the 1980s. He was a refusnik. And he said that, it's true about himself. He used to organize shiurim in Moscow, classes, and he was in contact with Chabad in Moscow, with the Moyle. I think it was Rabbi Lipschitz or somebody in Moscow. And he arranged brisin for people. And he says this was under communism. He says when he came to America, never everyone was making fun of him. How come you're not coming to Mincha on Shabbos? And how come you're going to be? So he says, on the communism, when there was pressure, he felt, a Yid, I have to show the Goy that the Goy is not going to make me to be a Goy. But when it's good times, so the Rebbe said, in the story of Purim, there's the Alter Rebbe's Pshat and there's Rashi's Pshat, and both are true. There was the Yidden who expressed the dedication to Yiddishkeit under the decree of Haman. When for a year the Yidden was thinking, what should I do? Should I risk my life? Should I not risk my life? Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Nisan, Iyar, Sivan, Tammuz. Should I risk my life? Shouldn't I risk my life? Should I risk my child's life? Should I not risk my life? They have a new baby. They're going to take my baby. They're going to kill him. I have my old mother. Look, she got sick. It's winter. And the Yidden are thinking and thinking, and not one of them said, I'm not going to change my religion. Everyone says, we're going to go with Mesiras Nefesh. So that is a lesson to us. A Yid has to know in the worst of times. A Yid has to be committed. It's a lesson to us. Everyone has their tkufas in their own life. Everyone has their tkufas. We have to know that we have to have Mesiras Nefesh, even in the worst of times. No matter what difficulties we are going through. And everybody may have their difficulties. And to each person, his difficulty is the end of the world. They say, what's the difference between an economic recession and an economic depression? Right? What's the difference? The difference is, when my neighbor loses his job, it's a recession. When I lose a job, that's a depression. So everybody, when it hurts them, so you have to know that in the worst of times, the story of Purim teaches us that Hashem is with us, and we have to stay strong with Hashem, and not chas v'shalom to have machshavas chutz. But we also have to understand Rashi's pshat, that after the story of Purim, when now they were breathing easy, and the queen is Esther, and Mordechai is the prime minister, and happy days are here again, the Yidden were so happy with the Yiddishkeit, and they were on fire with the Yiddishkeit. And they said, whatever happened to Matan Torah by coercion, now we're doing this willingly, beratzen. We're ready to jump in the fire for Hashem Yisbarach. That is what Purim is about. And that's what Adal is about. What's the attitude of Adal? The attitude of Adal is that a Yid should always know that his commitment to Yiddishkeit is complete and absolute. That is what Adal is about. So everyone should be inspired to Leimish the Talmud. The message of Purim is all year. And I want to compliment the people of the Baal Shem Tov Library who are doing such a wonderful job of bringing Chassidus, the light of Chassidus. Because really, Chassidus, what is the Nikud of Chassidus? The Nikud of Chassidus of the Baal Shem Tov is an absolute commitment to Yiddishkeit. And if you look in the Polish Chassidus, there's Rabbi Melech, who was the Rebbe of most of Polish Hasidim. One way or another are linked to this Rebbe Melech. And he writes that a Yid, when he says the Shema, has to imagine there's a big fire. And that he's ready to jump in the fire. Every time he says Krishma, he should imagine there's a big fire and he's ready to jump in the fire for Hashem Yisbarach. So that's the imagery of the Rebbe Melech, which is a Chassidish Ashkafa. In Chassidus, in Tanya, in Chabad, this is explained philosophically at length in this Zvoinus in Tanya, how really every mitzvah that you do really needs Mesiras Nefesh. And he explains in Tanya that the two first mitzvahs that we heard in Pi Agvura, Neichel V'Licha, that has all the Taryag mitzvahs. And all the mitzvahs say you have to do because Hashem is your God. And all the mitzvahs, Avodah Zarah, every sin is like a smaller Avodah Zarah. And he goes at length to explain what is idol worship. He's saying that Hashem is not, Chas v'Shalom is not God. This is a God. Every Aver that we do, we're saying, you're not my God, I'm doing what I want. And he explains Al Pi Chassidus and Al Pi Kabbalah. This is tiny. This Nakuda of Purim, that a Yid has to make a commitment to Hashem, is not only it's necessary for all of Yiddishkeit. Even the small decisions that we make about our career, about a shidduch for our children, about how to act at home. Everything we do, if we think that, listen, I'm absolutely committed to Hashem, that is what Purim is about. And it's to do with joy and with happiness and with fashion and with passion. That's what Purim is about. So each one should be inspired on Purim, and each one should have Tov Lev Mishnah Talmud, be inspired on Purim, and take this inspiration for a whole year, and Esher Koyach to the Chavrani Kadisha of the Best Library.
That's great.